All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for the first of the next 3 Saturdays. We'll be here at this time, 10 a.m. Eastern, breaking down these 2-game slates. Starting it this week, we've got Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Houston, Indy. Talk through the games, mention our thoughts, how we see it, the overview for the slate, and then, of course, we'll go position by position to try and frame it up for what we think the field will be doing, what we can do to get different angles of attack, and just things that we can find edges on for this slate for you guys. If you're just joining us for the first time, do us that favor, smash the like, subscribe to the channel, almost up to 5,100. It's going to be a slow burn. We got to the 5,000 before 2024, which we were very excited about. Many put a number of maybe 2,500 on that. They said, thought the under. We hit over double that, over 5,000. So appreciate everyone. Hope everyone's having a great new year. Back here with my guy, Hoop, as always. Hoopster, bring you in, man. It's going to be a fun next couple Saturdays. I know that you're waiting on these Lions, but we don't got the Lions today, so we'll wait on that one.
Yeah, it's an interesting week, obviously, this last week of the season, but it's an exciting time because we know what's right around the corner, and it's NFL playoff football, which is probably second to none in terms of entertainment value, sports betting, DFS content, best ball. I love the NFL best ball stuff. We're partnered with Drafters. If you don't have an account over there, just go in, type in SHIPIT. I mean, they have a look at that. I mean, this guy's just on it this morning. If you don't, you get a $100 match on your $100 deposit. So 100% of your first deposit. They're running a really nice contest over there. I think I'm almost up to like 100. Your boy's deep into these NFL playoff best ball streets. But it's an exciting time. And, this week there's a lot of big names sitting out. There's a lot of, extreme value plays. There's going to be a lot of surprises going into inactives tomorrow. It's kind of a wild situation, but, we can find some advantages. And then we got the playoffs. Like I said, today we got the 2-game slate. The next few weeks, like you said, they're probably going to split them up, I'd assume, the site. So it'll be a main slate on Saturday, be a main slate on Sunday. Next week, they're going to have the Monday Night Football game. So we'll have you covered for all of it. We'll have shows for each slate as well. Like Tambo said, we'll be here, same place, same time, the next at least 2 Saturdays, next week, the week after, see what the schedule kind of looks like moving forward. But very exciting times. PGA back in full swing. We launched a couple new packages, PGA-specific packages. The content has been on fire over there. A lot of members, a lot of success. So it's a fun ride. Looking forward to these next few weeks and beyond.
Yeah, you talked about the PGA only options. I'll pull those up quickly. But just to mention it too, while you're there, you said it. So next weekend, the wild card schedule's up. It's just who's going to play in it. So Saturday, same as today. It's got the 4:30 game, the 8:15 game for the wild card round on Saturday. It's got similar on Sunday, 2 games at 1 o'clock and 4:30. And then on Sunday night, there's another game. So 3 games next Sunday. Monday, you mentioned it. It's going to be the 1 game for the wild card round. The weekend after is the divisional round. That's where it's to be determined, but it does show 2 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, the typical setup. And then on Sunday, the conference championships the following week. That's my birthday, January 28th. So it's going to be a good Sunday for that. I'll always have some fun on that day. So excited to have some football there. Those are my favorite games of the entire year because I said this to someone yesterday, but I just love the conference championships. It's funny how it works, but it's almost like in DFS terms, sometimes like getting to a live final is the biggest deal. Like for a lot of people, myself included, I know when I got to my first one, it was like you finally made it. These people have been playing their whole lives, a lot of them trying just to get to a Super Bowl, to play in the game they dreamed of since they were a small kid, playing and getting into the game. And then the Super Bowl is always fun and awesome, but depending on the teams and whatnot, but in general, it's a great game and the parties that go with it. But I love the weekend of the conference championship. So that's the schedule for you guys. We got it there. Hoopster mentioned it. If you guys didn't know, PGA is back, as he said, if you caught it, in full swing. You like that one? So who comes
I'm learning, man. I'm learning on the fly. I mean, I've been at this for almost a decade, but man, you're never too old to continue to learn, right? That's what they say. Like, what's the saying? It's like learning is a lifelong. I don't know that crap.
The saying actually, Hoop, is the more you learn, the more you earn, as we like to say. But it's a different saying. But
I'm trying.
If you go to the PGA course, speaking of learning, that does come with all of the packages here, whether you go weekly, monthly, or the season pass. If you use the code PGA10, you can use this on anything. You can use this on the all access as well if you do want all the sports. But just to note here, if you use PGA10, this will end, I believe we said next week. We're going to check it out when we get there on the golf show next week. But if you use the code PGA10, whether it's on the PGA packages or the main all access for every sport, you will get 10% off your first month, 6-month, annual, or in the golf streets, the season pass. You get it for as little as $179 and change. That works out to about $5 per event. But I thought that was funny you brought it up, because in that PGA course, Hoop had another banger. He said, if someone is popular down low, you should find somewhere else to go. Talking about cheap chalk when it comes to golf. So you're on it, Hoop. You're getting it. It took till week 18, but you were working on it. You were progressing your game with the wordplay as the week goes on. Let's start talking about this NFL slate. Shout out to TX Scratch DFS, as my kid's first birthday is the 28th. That's going to be a great Sunday, my friend. Appreciate you guys. Hit that like if you're just joining us. Let's get into it, Hoop. Do, as always, the grand scheme overview for us. Pretty clear cut. I think this week, there's big weather in the first game. Not a lot of implications on the Baltimore side, or none, I should say. And then in the Houston-Indy game, huge implications. So talk to us about this slate in general as a whole.
Yeah, so you have three teams that have everything in the world to play for, and then you have one team that has absolutely nothing to play for in the Ravens. Let's start with them. Locked into the number one seed. They're at home here. The weather looks to be pretty shitty. Let's just see if we can get updated the most recent forecast from our guy Kevin Roth over at Roto Grinder. See what he has to say about this game. It's going to be pouring pregame, early in the game. It might taper off a little bit, but it's going to be very wet, and 10 to 15 mile an hour winds with gusts 25 to 35. So for a team that has nothing to play for, and they have to endure this crappy weather situation in the Ravens, man, it's a interesting situation. They're going to want to get the hell out of this one. So that's why you see this low total. It's sitting at 34.5 in the Steelers-Ravens game. Then you go to that Texans-Colts game in a dome sitting at 48, which is, looks like the highest total on the entire slate. Yeah, it's right there besides Buffalo, Miami, the highest total on the slate. 2 game slate. We know what's going to happen on the slate. All the ownership is going to go to Houston and Indy, and probably rightfully so. I mean, there is a lot of unknowns in that Baltimore game. We've seen situations like this in the past where a team is locked into the number one seed, nothing to play for last week of the season, and they just get the ball and just run it every single time. And then if they don't get a first down, they'll just punt it. And they want to kill the clock and get the hell out of here. Ravens could take that approach, definitely. And that is the risk with trying to get unique and playing guys in that game. On the Steelers side, again, they have everything to play for. Like, they need to win. Not very likely they get in the playoffs, but they will be. It's the first game of the slate. They don't know what any of the other teams are going to do tomorrow. So they're playing all out. Mason Rudolph, quarterback. We saw George Pickens break the slate. It was a 2 or 3 game slate around. Was it Christmas or one of those slates? They're all mixed and matched to me. But, man, this just seems like a very tough spot, this game specifically. And the quarterbacks here, Mason Rudolph, not very appealing. Tyler Huntley, like, if this was a game the Ravens needed to win, like, I'd have some interest, but they just don't have anything to really play for. Just so many unknowns on the Ravens side. We'll talk about each specific play and whatnot. We're going to go through basically every viable option from a fantasy perspective. And then Houston, Indy is where we're going to get all the ownership. That's the 48 total, 2 teams. Again, they both need to win. Basically, it's a win or go home scenario. Whoever wins is going to be in the playoffs. Whoever loses is out. The Texans are favored by, it looks like it bumped up a little bit. Now it's like 2.5 in that game. So this is the premier game of the slate. It's where all the ownership's going. We're going to talk about ways to potentially get a little bit different if you are looking to go to that game, but it is one that you're going to want heavy exposure to on the slate.
Yeah, great way to frame it all up. You kind of said everything I was thinking. The main piece being, even if this slate didn't have the weather in Pittsburgh, Baltimore, it was already going to be moved to that second game anyway. Even if it didn't have all the implications in the second game. It still would have had the bigger total and all that, but all the other stuff just leaned in favor of making this the way the slate's going to play out. So we'll have to find ways to get different when we go through it. But I think right off the top, being a Ravens fan and talking about the one point you mentioned there, I think for sure with absolutely nothing to play for, like, our guy Go Collect said, and you said it best about Pittsburgh, they don't know what else is going to happen. So they just play to win. That's simple. It's a rivalry that's like no other. It's been going on forever. It's fine. But for the Ravens, just get their team through as healthy as they can, get through this game, get off the field, get to the break, and go from there. So I expect a lot of running from them. We'll talk about a guy like Melvin Gordon later on. You can talk about that Ravens defense, even though they'll be down probably some guys due to rest and things like that. They still have a good defense over there. The Steelers defense, if there's weather, anything can happen on either side. So I like both defenses in that game. But then you mentioned it, second game, just hard to avoid anyway. Even if you were thinking, okay, I'm going to be contrarian and go with some stuff in this first game, forget the weather, forget everything they say, all this other stuff, you still are going to you don't have the salary is like no issue on this slate. There is no quarterbacks that are expensive outside of CJ Stroud, Jonathan Taylor, and then it drops off a cliff. Nico Collins and Pittman drops off a cliff. Dalton Schultz is the best or highest priced tight end, I guess I should say, at 4,200. And then you're talking about guys at 39 and 2,500, and then it goes down from there. So the main thing is even if you tried to go heavy on like Baltimore, Pittsburgh spot, you're still going to have Collins, Pittman, Taylor, Singletary, guys like that littered throughout your lineup. So let's talk through it from that perspective. Let's start at the quarterback position. I know someone like even our Discord this morning was talking about Stroud being 80% owned. I still think he gets capped at 50 to 55 just because Gardner Minshew is much cheaper and allows you to fit all of the options in the Houston Indy game that you want. And I also think no matter whether or not, people will still try and fit in guys like Huntley and Rudolph. Just take some shots, some sprinkles, as you like to say.
It's very easy to kind of predict the quarterback position in terms of ownership. It's not like the other positions where the crappy guys get like no ownership or 1 or 2%. Like on a 2-game slate, each quarterback is going to get pretty significant ownership, and that's how it always is, no matter what. It doesn't matter how bad the quarterback is, they're going to get some sort of ownership. So like it's not like Mason Rudolph is going to be 1% owned. Like that's just not even a possibility. Quarterback they always will get something, whether it's 5, 10, 12. I think Mason Rudolph most likely comes in around like 10%. Huntley is going to be the second lowest owned. He'll be, I don't know, anywhere from 12 to 20, somewhere in the range. The quarterbacks always get some sort of ownership. Now, quarterbacks in this game, they're obviously going to be much lower owned than the quarterbacks in the second game, and rightfully so. The total in this one's 34. There's wind, there's rain. It's not an ideal situation. Could one of these guys get there? Absolutely. It's the NFL. Like anything can freaking happen. I mean, we saw Mason Rudolph hit George Pickens on that deep bomb to start the game. Like, I don't think he ended up doing much more after that, but actually may have. What would he finish? So he finished with 20 fantasy points in that game where he threw like a 70-yard bomb to start the game. So there are paths for these guys to get there. The one thing I will say, though, about like the Ravens defense today, if you're coaching and scheming, it's much easier to punt off on the offensive side. Like you can call plays just to grind the clock out, that sort of thing. But defensively, they typically still play. Like the Ravens defense is going to be playing hard. It's not like they're going to say, Najee Harris is running towards me, I'm just going to let him go right past me. Like defensive players, even in a game you're trying to punt off, show up a little bit. So it's not like they're just going to give the Steelers an easy victory here. So with all that being said, like, I don't want a ton of Mason Rudolph. I don't want a ton of Huntley. Again, if Huntley was in a must-win sort of game, Lamar Jackson got hurt, Huntley's in, they need to win this game, I'd have a lot of interest in him. Like he's had some moderate success in this league. He's at least played in some games, meaningful games. He can run a little bit, but I just don't think we're going to see much from them from an offensive perspective. And, even if we do like Huntley, his offensive weapons are going to be decimated today. There's no Zay Flowers. I can't imagine they're going to use likely all that much. It's going to be the backup tight end. It's going to be the backup wide receiver. It's going to be the backup running back. So his complementary pieces are going to be pretty shitty today. So even if you do like him, there's just a lot of strikes against his ass today, like a lot. So the quarterbacks here, not much interest. Will I have some? Potentially. I haven't built my teams yet. We'll see. Stroud, Minshew, obviously are going to be the two that everyone play at the quarterback position. and rightfully so. Again, this game is basically 2 touchdowns higher in terms of the total, which is big. I mean, that's a big difference going from a 34 where we have a Pittsburgh projected score like 18 and the Ravens projected score 15 or 16, and then the Texans projected to score 25 and the Colts projected to score 23. I mean, it's almost a full touchdown higher on each side. So Stroud clearly in play. He's got the rushing upside. The obvious downfall to a guy like Stroud is, missing some key pieces. A lot of his success this season was with a guy like Tank Dell, who is now out. It sounds like Robert Woods could potentially miss this game as well at 3,800. He does have Dalton Schultz. And then Gardner Minshew, which, I think might be my preferred option. He has all his pieces. He's cheaper than Stroud. Going to be lower owned than Stroud because it's just easy to go to CJ Stroud today. I mean, we have so many value plays. There's not a lot of spends, obviously, which when we talk about roster construction, feel free to leave a shit ton of money on the table today. Like, you can leave a lot of money and don't think twice about it. But I like Minshew because he does have Pittman. He does have Downs. He has all these tight ends he throws to. Zach Moss is in the mix a little bit today. I think the Colts win this game. Like, I like the Colts in this game. Probably my favorite offense to attack today. And Minshew is going to be, I think, my favorite quarterback when you factor everything in. And you do get a little bit of rushing upside with him. He'll take off if it's open. So really like Minshew. But again, it's just hard to avoid the quarterbacks in the second game. Like, there's just so many reasons to be very, very heavy on these two guys and very light on the other two.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of my point earlier, like when the chat was talking about Stroud's going to be 80%. I think the quarterbacks in that game could combine for 80%. Like, you could absolutely see 12-8 on the first game, and then the rest of the ownership goes to that second game, and rightfully so. Like you said, we know why. I think one thing that was mentioned there is for sure from our guy Go Collect Against it is Huntley still in play with his rushing upside and being able and being a rivalry game. I agree with what Hoop said, and I talked about it earlier. I expect the Ravens just to run the ball. But when they get up there, I mean, sometimes they're just good enough to do this, and that's the way that this team has been all season. It's not like, the second stringers suck completely and they've watched their team be the best in the entire AFC, still go out there with a lot to prove. If they get up there and start doing stuff, you can see Huntley be one of the better scoring point per dollar. Like, if he beats Minshew and comes out better than Stroud point per dollar is what I was trying to say, then you would have it set up where you could see that. The problem is, like the chat's mentioning, like Treadwell, Charlie Kohler. I mean, Charlie Kohler's $2,500. I don't think he's like this super sneaky option because I'm guessing once people are down there, they say that's the guy that would be used for Baltimore. But again, he's not going to have much ownership, so I'm fine with it. I like that. But if you set it up like Huntley and Kohler or Huntley and Treadwell and just cut it off there, maybe get a guy like Warren or Pickens or Deontay Johnson on the other side, and then get your Taylor, Singletary, Collins, Pittman type plays in there. You can just pick up, hope to get some more running back touchdowns in that second game that would take away a little bit from Minshew and from Stroud, and then let your guys like Collins and Pittman still pick up just the raw PPR points that they are going to get just all day long just to make sure it happens. So, I mean, that's the main difference of how I would look at it. Huntley would be the guy I have more interest in that spot. In the second game, it's pretty straightforward. I think Minshew is the more popular option based on price, but we know that Stroud is going to be the more popular option overall. When it comes to actual ownership percentage, I think we see Stroud come out ahead, but that's fair. And that's why, because of the setup of the slate, you have all the money in the world to spend. You don't need salary. So that would make the most sense to me. With a guy like Stroud, I think you have to know that in your main lineups and some of the stuff like I'll have over on the site, if you go to our site and you go under our core reports, or you see how our projections shake out, you look at the player pool, the slate plans, all those things, obviously these guys are going to pop. But if you have Stroud, Collins, and Schultz, you're going to have to get different in other places. And I think you do that via the punt plays. The other angle you take is, if you go Stroud, is start mixing in your Mechis, start mixing in your Hutchinsons. Shit, my guy Mayo has been trying to make X Hutchinson work for 2 weeks now. We're on week 3. Maybe it's third time's the charm. I know Mechie looks probably better on paper, but if you go X Hutchinson in that same spot instead, that could be the guy that breaks the slate up. Obviously, on the opposite side, the opposite game, in the Baltimore game, you've got Treadwell and Tylan Wallace there that you could go to. So I think there's punt plays that you can use to get different at tight end. We'll get to it later, but when you're mixing and matching with Stroud, why not throw in a Brevin Jordan as opposed to a Dalton Schultz? What if he just uses Schultz and Brevin Jordan and it's both of them? So I think there's lots of different ways you could go, but at quarterback, it's pretty straightforward. The overall slate is pretty straightforward. And who that segues us right to running back, where I think this is where you got to figure it out, because this is kind of where you've got Jonathan Taylor for good reason at home, but Moss is going to be back. You've got, Harris and Warren in the Pittsburgh game. You've got Melvin Gordon, people are expecting, and I do as well, in this Baltimore spot going there. I don't think there's any reason for them to go too crazy with other guys. And then obviously you've got Singletary conversations on the Houston side. I don't know your thoughts on Dameon Pierce, but yeah, you've got some running backs to talk about here. I think this will be where you separate, but most people are going to have Taylor, Singletary, and or a Pittsburgh guy. And then there'll be some mixtures of the opposite Pittsburgh guy, Melvin Gordon, and maybe some of those punt plays. What are you doing here at the running back position?
Yeah, so I mean, there's not a ton of options really here at running back in terms of guys we can play. The hope is people, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill are potential, or Gus Edwards is active, and people say, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play him today, which I just can't imagine they're going to give Gus Edwards reps at running back today. Maybe even the same with Justice Hill. I mean, Justice Hill has been a pretty big part of what they have done recently. And, not only from a running perspective, but a pass catching perspective. So that leaves like Melvin Gordon, who in these scenarios that we talked about, where the Ravens just go ahead and run the ball a ton, I think it just goes to Melvin Gordon, who, is 4,800, it fits into any sort of build that you kind of want to play today. If you're going heavy Houston, Indy, and you just need something from the other game, give it to the guy who, I don't know, he could touch the ball 20 times. Like, who the hell knows? Like, you just don't know what the Ravens are going to do. It's the biggest question mark on the slate. If going anywhere for the Ravens, I want it to be with the running game, because I think there's a very clear game script type situation where they just give him the ball a ton. So Melvin Gordon, I think, is a great play, 4,800. The Pittsburgh guys, will stick with that game. It's Jaylen Warren over Najee Harris. The workload is trending in that direction. We've been talking about it basically all season, that, Jaylen Warren is better than Najee Harris. And again, Najee Harris is coming off the big game, but it was all on the ground. Like the pass catching stuff is so valuable on DraftKings. So Jaylen Warren over Najee for me, but I will have exposure to both. And then you have the running backs in the last game, which will get a majority of the ownership. Devin Singletary at $6K flat, which is a very fair price tag. Should get all the work. He has pass catching upside as well in a dome. And then Jonathan Taylor, 7,400, should get all the work there as well. So both the running backs in the secondary game. In the second game will get most of the ownership, but I think you definitely have to play those guys in the first game as well. In the first game, it's definitely the defenses and running backs that I'll be looking at, opposed to the pass catchers. We'll talk about the pass catchers in a minute, but I think that's just the way to go. But it's really only those five. I mean, if you have some sort of lean on Zach Moss getting a bunch of work, like the problem is like the running back position just doesn't offer enough of a discount for the backup guys. I mean, he's still like $5K for Zach Moss. Like it's still a price tag. He's priced right with the Pittsburgh running backs who are going to get work. So it makes it difficult to take chances at running back. So it's kind of like just those five guys. And again, hopefully like Gus Edwards or Justice Hill are active and then pick up like a little bit of ownership, because I just can't imagine them getting much work in this game today.
Yeah, I'll give Sean some time here. He's got some good ones here. Taylor, Jonathan absolutely kills Houston over 5 games this. I mean, he's obviously a good play. We know that on this slate. We'll see how it goes. This is true. Like Gordon, a guy like Gordon is so dusty, but we're not really worried about dust on 2-game slates. We do this every week. Pickens was so dusty and then broke the slate. It's a price play. It's in a game where there's weather. It's a possibility based on sitting guys. It could just be enough. You never know. And then this is probably his best point he brought up besides the 2 other obvious ones is if you think the Steelers win, I got no problem like Najee Harris and the Pittsburgh defense. I also think you could do it the other way, though. I don't mind in a 2-game slate, negative correlation, a great way to go about it. If you want to just put a guy like Jaylen Warren up against the Ravens defense and just hope the Ravens D are the one that's needed, they still show up at home in the final game of the season, proving stuff to the rest of their teammates, messing up things for Pittsburgh, everything they want to do there, you could still see it. And then you could set it up for a spot where Warren just gets checked down city. And this don't matter. Again, 2-game slate, all this stuff, you got to throw it out the window.
I mean, definitely not endorsing Melvin Gordon as a good NFL running back. That is simply just not. Yeah, it's a product of the current situation with the Ravens locked into the 1 seed, nothing to play for today. They don't give a shit if Melvin Gordon rushes the ball 25 times and gets hurt and isn't available for the playoffs. Like, they don't care about that. That's like not even in their head. And he's not good. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't need to be a good running back on a 2-game slate where he could potentially get 25 touches.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think too many people focus on that. Oh, he sucks. Oh, he's old. Oh, he's this. Slate dynamics, 2-game slate.
I agree with all that. He does suck. He is old. Like, I agree with every single one of those statements. They're true. It's a true statement, but that doesn't mean that we can't play him today.
Right. That's all it comes down to. And again, like we said, if we expect the Ravens to run it, if that's all the case, how does that work then? Okay, let's say they run him 12 to 15 times. He averages 2 yards a carry? Like, he's horrible. So there's some yardage, but it only takes one slip, one fall, one end zone touchdown, whatever it might be, to really tack onto that $4,800 price tag, which can make a lot work. And if some of those other guys don't come through and that's the one that's required, that's when it works out. So again, it's just talking through it as a 2-game slate. Not my favorite play, but just to say I understand why people are going there. And I think for the Ravens, it makes sense to literally just kill the clock, get out of this game as healthy as possible. And if they lose someone like him, guess what? Another dust ball is ready to go for the playoffs because they just signed Dalvin Cook. So they can plug him in instead of your guy Gordon. So there's lots of opportunity when you think about that and go from there. So anything else at running back that you want to bring up? I guess Singletary, Pierce, maybe spend just a minute on that, and then we can move it over to wide receiver. I think Singletary clear and away, but Pierce is $100 less than Melvin Gordon before I'd probably go looking for guys behind Melvin Gordon or other spots.
Just hard, again, because of the pricing on a guy like Pierce. I mean, he's priced right. It's not like you're getting like a massive discount, which I think going into next, I know why DraftKings does it, because they fear like the injury, the midweek injury, and they don't want the cheap running backs to be super, super popular. But at 4,700, it's not like it's a freebie price tag. Like, he's got to show up and do something at 4,700. And it's difficult when you can kind of like project him to get 5, 6, maybe 7 touches. Like, I don't know. It's just a product of the pricing. It's just hard to do it, to be honest.
Any rant for these?
It
doesn't have to be me. I said any rant for these? Like, what do you do with all these?
What's the incentive? He needs 75 yards.
Everyone's incentive means that they're just going to get there, right? We got to bet all the overs and props. We got to make sure.
I mean, honestly, on the teams that have like nothing to play for, like, I think that stuff's more valuable, on a team that like their team's done, they're not making the playoffs, and Joe Schmo needs 120 yards to get his bonus. Yeah, maybe they try to do it, but this is like the premier game of the weekend. Like, these teams, 100%, it's a win or go home game. Essentially, they're not worried about Singletary getting his 75 yards or whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, also too, like they do have everything to play for here. And so if he gets it, people are going to lean on the incentive. Oh, I told you Singletary was the best. It's because of his 75-yard incentive. No, they had to win the damn game or they're done for the season. And he's the best chance to ride him, Stroud, Collins. They're going to just play their best guys. It has nothing to do with the incentive. Again, just the worst takes of all time, probably, when it comes to NFL. I've been playing this game a very long time. NFL DFS, I think those are probably the worst things ever, but either way.
Honestly, I mean, on the teams that have nothing to play for, I mean, it's not the worst thing to look at, but a lot of times you can see what they're going to do. I mean, you look at the Rams. Nakia has these, he needs 4 catches for 30-some yards or something to break the rookie record. Sean McVay came out and basically said, we're getting him that, and his ass is out of the game. Like,
he's already said it. That's what I brought that up because in the Discord the other day, we had a big back and forth on, I'm not using it for DFS. I think you can go bet those props if you want on something like that, where literally the coach comes out and says, we want to get him at stuff. We want to get that record. Then we want to get him out of the game. But it's not a good DFS. Oh, Hopkins needs 49 yards. Yeah, he'll probably get it. And then he's done. Like, these are not good DFS plays. This is not, I'm not even coming at M. This is just in general because M was the first one to bring it up. But don't go with any of that. We weren't saying that Baltimore wouldn't play well. We're saying what's their strategy going to be for this game. And I think that's for sure the setup here is, again, why wouldn't they just run it and try and win the game that way? But I think as far as running back goes, I don't have much more else to add.
And I'll just add onto that comment, because it is somewhat important. Is like, there's no guarantee that we're correct on this analysis. Maybe Baltimore says, you know what, we want to just knock Pittsburgh. We want to knock the Steelers out of the freaking playoffs today. Let's just kick their ass and knock them out and have some momentum with our backups going into the playoffs. There's a path where that does happen. Do I think it's likely? No. Does the field for DFS think it's likely? No. But if you think it's a possibility, build your teams like that, because there is a chance. I think even if they want to do that, it would be difficult, because look at the guys that are rolling out today. So that's the issue I have.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but one more take, just as a, crazy Ravens fan that follows everything that goes on behind the scenes. Do you remember against San Francisco, Lamar Jackson spoke about the spread? He said it was a disgrace. He said what did he call it exactly? He said it's disrespectful. He said the way you put us up as that type of underdog with what we done this season, it ain't no joke. These are an underdog team. I know it's the backups. That's what it has to be done. But if you think they're not looking at it, that's the case, right? That's what they're looking at. So if you think that bothers them too, that may be the case as well, to say we don't care if it's a full strength Steelers. We want to prove that on top again, that we're still going to go out and get the job done again. Whatever happens, but just little things like that. But, I don't have much else at the running back position. Lots we could talk about at the wide receiver. We already talked a little bit about certain spots here. I think it starts up top. Obviously, Collins and Pittman are extremely easy to get into lineups, both very affordable for the slate and how it sets up, and both are just usually PPR monsters, with even better situation like Collins with no Dell or Brown now since the injury stuff, and Pittman, just the guy that Minshew continues to go to. So where are we at with this wide receiver position? How are you handling it? And who are some of the guys down low that you might be able to fit in to get different?
Yeah, so I'll continue to start with the Baltimore situation, because it's the biggest question mark, I guess, on the slate, and we might get some clarity with inactives. It's a very important situation to monitor the Ravens inactives, which we'll get at about 3 p.m. Eastern, because you got to see who's in, who's out, and it could be another situation like they've already ruled out Zay Flowers and Odell. Next two in line, Bateman, Aguilar, but these guys are guys that are getting reps on a normal basis. So are they going to play them? How much are they going to play? Or do they just say, we're just rolling 2 wide receiver set. We'll roll out Laquan Treadwell, Tylan Wallace, take our chances that way. It's just, to me, it's shaping up to be a game where they're just going to play the full-on backups. It's going to be like Treadwell, Wallace, and then at tight end it'll be Charlie Kolar, which we'll talk about when we get to the tight end position. Melvin Gordon's going to get the carries, and they're just going to roll it out that way, would be my guess. We'll see. So if we get to inactives and Bateman and Aguilar are indeed active, I'll be looking just to avoid those guys. I don't want to play any Ravens guys that typically get reps on the field today. So I'm hoping those guys are in, and the field kind of starts to navigate to them a little bit, and then we can just pivot to Treadwell and Tylan Wallace, who I think end up getting the reps at wide receiver today. So it's definitely a situation to monitor. Like I said, 3 Eastern. Let's see who's in, who's out type of thing. On the Steelers, if you want to go there, if you're going to be in on the Steelers passing, and again, you don't necessarily need to be in on them, but you're probably going to have to play a little bit of these guys. It's just Pickens and Deontay Johnson. Pickens finally had the big game, like I said, around Christmas time. Deontay Johnson, 5.1K. I'm fine playing these guys. I don't want to be like massively overweight on, or not. I don't want to have massive ownership on these dudes. I think there's a lot of risk, but just in terms of filling out rosters, especially if you're doing 150, probably got to play them a little bit, but I don't want guys like Allen Robinson or Calvin Austin or anything like that. Then we go to the big boy game, and I guess there are some question marks on the Houston side. On the Colts side, I think Pittman's a phenomenal play. Love Pittman at home in the dome. Good connection with Minshew, 7,500. Him and Nico Collins right around the same price tag, $100 off. Both will have big time ownership. Good with both of them, but man, something just strikes me that Pittman has a really big game today. So I want Pittman. They use him in just a variety of different ways. I think he's a little more dynamic than Nico Collins in what he does and how they kind of line him up. I want to be all over Pittman today. Alec Pierce, 4,300, had a big play. I believe it was last week. It was like a 50-yard touchdown. Yeah, the only play, 50-yard touchdown. If he does that today, he has a chance to be on the optimal. And then Josh Downs, 52, I think is a great play as well. So kind of want to be all over these Colts pass catchers. And then Houston, obviously Nico Collins is going to be a very highly owned play, rightfully so, 2-game slate. But after that, some question marks and a chance to potentially get not question marks, but a chance to get a little bit different on this slate with the team that's projected to score the most points. Robert Woods is questionable, did not practice all week. That is one piece of news to certainly monitor. 3,800, yeah, so he didn't practice at all. This game is at 8:15. Probably don't have the news prior to lock. So this is a situation where if he plays, I want to be on him. If he doesn't play, I want to be on. And you can play these guys regardless, but I want to bump the ownership a little bit on Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson, 3K, both of them. It's like, man, do you want to punt with Baltimore wide receivers who could potentially, they might not get any targets. They might just run the ball the whole time. Or do you want to punt with two guys from an offense with the best quarterback on this slate, the highest projected team total at lower ownership? So I think this is a good opportunity to get a little bit different on the slate. John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. And then even so, like Robert Woods with that Q tag going into this later game should get lower ownership than he typically would have. So I think this is the spot where we can potentially look to get a little bit different. These cheap Texans wide receivers, they don't have much beyond these guys. They're going to be on the field. And then especially if Woods is out, they're going to be on the field a ton. So I think this is a very key situation on the slate, what you do with these punt Texans wide receivers, Mechie and Hutchinson.
Yeah, I like a lot of what you said there, so I don't have to go too far into it because you broke down everything, and I'm just going to talk on other stuff real quick that came to my mind, like the setup of the slate. We talked through some of it already, like the setup of running backs versus the defense, but just overall, the main thing that I took away from that, and with these wide receivers prices and with how Taylor and Singletary are priced, how you can just basically fit them all, I said if you want to play them all together, I think you can do that and then just pick your punts. Like that's the way I would call it. Pick your punts. Find your punt plays, get to them, get different that way. Leaving salary, which everyone always talks about, but I think it's like leaving salary plus game script is how I would classify it here, where if you've got, a Stroud lineup and you're going to play it with Nico Collins and Pittman and then one of those 3K guys, it's okay to go like Hutchinson or Mechie with a Brevin Jordan, which we'll get to in a second, instead of Dalton Schultz, and then saying you think it's going to be the running back from the Pittsburgh game and something else, and then leave 3,000 on the table or whatever it is. Like that's how I think you have to set it up, not just leave money to leave money and get what the optimizer gives you, but look at how those lineups actually set up for, does it make sense for this slate, for a 2-game slate, all of that. So I think really that's going to be the key focus that I'm going to look at. And then some of the stuff you'd said there too, like Robert Woods, even if he somehow plays, not practicing all week, it would be tough for me. But I think in a lot of those lineups, you'd have the money left over. Maybe you get there. I like some of these home run plays a little bit more. And it takes me to some of the stuff from earlier. Another. And Sean's back again, and have some Aguilar, have a bunch of Aguilar, all these ones. He's got the main incentive that he's likely to get if he gets one is he needs 58 yards for $250,000. First of all, he's broke 58 yards twice on the entire season, and it was an uphill battle to get 63 and 64. Second of all, it's the same exact thing we already talked about. So he gets you 3 catches for 60 yards. He gets his $250,000. I bet you get $0 million. 0 500K, 0 anything for yourself, because what's that going to do for you? If you've got Pittman and Collins and Pickens and Deontay Johnson and some of these other punts that get there and just destroy him, what does that mean? You played him because he needed 58 yards for his own pocketbook?
The other thing is, like, if he gets the 58 yards, there's no guarantee that he's the guy you need at wide receiver today on the slate. So find a book.
John is the worst. I got to cut this guy. We get it, man. We are in here every day. We know it. We understand the concept, man. You're playing it from a different perspective than other people are thinking about it. That's the difference. If he gets there, it's not because of the incentive. That's what I'm trying to say. But even if you're playing him because of the incentive and you think that's why he gets there, it's not even guaranteed that he gets his incentive and gets you your money. You're playing for yourself for DFS, not for Nelson Aguilar's $250K that he's trying to rack up in his pocketbook. So that's why I'm bringing it up and get so passionate about it, is you're not playing the game you're supposed to be playing. You're playing somebody else's game where he wins $250,000 if he gets 58 yards. If he gets you 58 yards, you don't get shit. You get, probably 3 catches for 58. You're 8 little points on your DraftKings lineup. Does that help you? I don't know. So think about it from that perspective. Go ahead, Hoop.
Yeah, I was agree with what you said there. I lost my point. I think it was the same thing you were saying. Like, go find because his receive. I don't know if they have the receiving props on these guys, but his receiving prop will probably be 30. 34, 35. Go bet the over. Then you automatically win. If he goes out and gets you 3 for 58, you're not going to automatically win in DFS.
Yeah, where's this at now? Now I got to look this up just because I want to see it. So if you go to the receiving props today,
they don't have, a lot of the books don't have the Ravens because obviously.
Yeah, they don't know fully yet. I wish we could see it. We'll see if it comes up. But even still, that's the funniest part of it all. Is Aguilar's prop would be like 35 or something today, 35 and a half, But
Yeah,
guess
just
what?
jam
The
over.
books also know that no other wide receiver is playing. So why is it only that? It's the same exact reason. You got to play the other game. I'm taking home run shots. I want the Tylan Wallace, if he's Q-tag too, we'll see. But if he plays, I want the Treadwell 60-yard touchdown that really racks up and means something. I want Hutchinson to finally get there when no one's even thinking of him. They're playing Mechie. I want all those plays instead as my punt plays and mix and matches. That's the thing that I'm talking about. And if he gets there and Aguilar gets there, bet the yard prop or bet the anytime touchdown, whatever you want to try and do to think that he's going to get there and be the value you need. It's not even against Aguilar as much as it is the people focused on these incentives. That's what drives me crazy, is that's not why they would get there if that's the case. So keep it moving. We can go to tight end. There's a couple of options here, I think, like the cheaper options. Brevin Jordan, who we already talked about. Obviously, Dalton Schultz, just a fantastic spot today on an extremely weak tight end position, maybe the weakest we've seen on these 2-game slates. But like Freiermuth, Granson, sure, we'll get into those. The other one down here I was going to bring up was earlier already brought up was Charlie Kohler. We talked about that. Like, why would they? I know there's like a slight chance that Andrews comes back for the playoffs or whatever, but likely 4,800. I don't know. What are you doing here at this tight end position, Hoop?
I got to stay out of the chat, man. It's
going to never stop. It's all good.
Yeah. So Dalton Schultz is the clear guy. At the tight end position, 4,200, very cheap. The Texans are obviously without their a lot of their key wide receivers. No Noah Brown, no Tank Dell. Obviously, Dalton Schultz, 4,200, will be very popular at the position. There's not many good, solid tight end plays on the slate. Starts with Schultz. He'll clearly be the highest owned. Who are some other guys? You kind of mentioned Brevin Jordan. He got the touchdown, I believe, last week, 2,500. This could be a position where, I don't know, 7 fantasy points wins the position today. Like, I would not be shocked at all if whoever gets 7 or 8 at tight end is the guy that you need. So that's just basically 1 touchdown. So I think a lot of guys can be in the conversation at tight end today. Similar situation with the Ravens. Like, if Likely is active, I think that's good because people might play him, but it's got to be this Kohler guy at 2,500. All signs point to them just going full on backups today. Kohler 2,500, I think, is a fine option. No lock. It's not like it's a guarantee. I mean, again, there is a scenario where they just run the damn ball all game, but 2,500 in play. You got Freiermuth, who, man, it just seems like he hasn't done anything lately. Just want to pull this up. What do you get? 4 for 44. Just hasn't had anything going, but it's a 2-game slate. You got to consider him a little bit. And then the Colt stuff is always difficult because they just have so many different guys. But on my Minshew quarterback teams, I'm fine getting some exposure to these Colts tight ends on a 2-game slate again. If you are under the assumption that I am, where like 7 or 8 fantasy points could win the tight end position, you just have to consider a variety of guys because that's literally just 1 touchdown. So that's kind of where I'm at. Not a great position. Schultz will get a majority of the ownership. I mean, probably over 50%, rightfully so. But there's other guys you can definitely play at this position.
Yeah, I think the guys I mentioned, like, that's how I set it up. But I think like the Kohler thing, he could just be the guy. Like, I know even other games we have some history on Huntley when he's come in. It is just, tight end city. When it was with Mark Andrews, it was that. When it was with Likely, it was that. Kohler could be the guy this week. Like you said, he's 2,500. I know people will like both him and Brevin Jordan at that price tag because this main setup is people will either try and leverage off of Dalton Schultz in the exact same position for a little less money. I think if you landed on a Schultz lineup that you loved and wanted just to take Schultz out and put in Jordan and hope it's not a Schultz game and that Jordan gets that 9 points again, at least it's at a 1Z position and it would literally be crushing the guy that most people have in there because Schultz will be extremely popular today. I'm not sure. I didn't look at full ownership on him just yet. I'll have a quick look here just to see, but probably 40 to 50%, would you say, Hoop, for Schultz in there? Especially when you consider 2 tight end lineups, maybe. I don't know. It won't be as many of those today for
50,
sure.
He's got to be over 50. I mean, it's just he's the clear play, the guy that everyone's going to, and he's projected way better than everyone, no matter like where you look. I mean, he's going to be if you just run an optimizer, because I did what we've kind of done on the Showdown shows where I just run it and don't change anything. You're getting like over 70% Schultz without making any manual adjustments.
My boy Parabay is there with me. He's always got my back, but I'm saying people are taking it too serious with Aguilar as much as just in general. I hope Aguilar gets an end around 10-yard touchdown today just to really close the book. It's not about the play and how he gets there. It's that he doesn't do that shit. Like, it's not how it works. So I hope he gets there in a random way for you and you see it's not about the incentive. But either way, I digress. We move on. The one point I wanted to bring up, Jay, really like this one. These are the guys that are going to be sneaky as well, too. Like Granson is the opposite side of Schultz. He could be used there. I think I saw, too, who was the other guy they've been using lately? Is this Mallory guy?
Mallory, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get to, and they're not going to project. You're going to have to really put them into your stuff. But, I mean, he's coming off multiple weeks, 9.6, 8.7, 2.9. I mean, it's not the same. Anything could happen. Mo Alley Cox, it's really hard to get it right, and that's why it sucks. But just to say it, like, that's obviously a spot where you're in the game that you want to be in. You're on the opposite side.
See, you messed up, though, Tambo. You forgot one thing, though, when you talk about these incentives. It's not only that the players know the incentives, like their personal incentives. The quarterbacks also know, man. So they're going to make sure to get him the ball. Dude, you messed up.
Oh, I saw other stuff. The moral right that the coaches have to get them the ball to make sure that they get that money. Like, yeah, just he will.
I don't know if you know this, but all it takes is one big target and, like, they can smash, man. The quarterback's throwing it to him.
It's fine. I needed to get this out of my system. We've been talking about it all week. It's fun. You guys know I'm passionate about this stuff. It's all fun and games. I'm just saying, like you're talking about, it doesn't matter. Like the guy just
Aguilar. Yeah, you know now it's definitely Aguilar 6 for 120 and a touchdown.
Oh, I'm gonna find these things and bet these now. When people dunk on me on the rant, that I can still say at least I got the anytime touchdown or something.
Yeah, you got the ultimate hammer. You got the receipt to come back and say, see, I was on it too. I was right there with you.
Yeah. Now clip this part. Tambo's play of the day. First touchdown for Aguilar, 22-1. Anytime touchdown, Aguilar, 6-1. Bet them both. You can't miss. As long as he gets in the box, we at least make profit. Boom. Like that. That's the way you do it, right? So no, it was much more an incentive rant. We're gonna go on and move on to this the final stuff here, Hoop. I got nothing else at tight end. We can talk through defense quick. If you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat. I just want to say, Antoine, we talked about Kohler 3 times on this show already, my friend. So and likely and all that. So rewind back. But go ahead, Hoop, talk to us about defenses. It's defenses. I get it. High variance, all that stuff. Is there any thoughts? Like we did mention earlier, the one good thing Sean came to today with us was the Najee Harris mixed with Pittsburgh D. If they are up and smashing, why not just continue to ride Najee? That's how he typically has the big games. You can go Warren against Baltimore. I talked about that. But one thing I would kick to your thoughts on is just Houston Indy D looks to be going extremely overlooked because people associate weather with shutouts, with low scores, with running, with all that stuff. But realistically, when you think out loud, if teams are just going to run the ball all day in that game, where do the opportunities come in? We've seen plenty of games. I think back to the Cleveland Browns start of the season, they were $3,100. The game, I think there was 31-30 on the scoreboard, or 38-31, and the Cleveland defense broke the slate because it was still them putting up the points. So what's your thoughts on the defenses in that second game as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like DraftKings kind of, so 2,900, 3K, 3,100, 3,300. So they kind of just copped out and said, hey, just, pick your defense and move on. Like it's not an important position. Steelers will get all the ownership. There's a path where they don't have many opportunities. We talked about it. Like there's a clear path where the Ravens just run the ball. And if you're playing a defense, you want the other team passing. I don't think the Ravens are passing much today. Don't get me wrong, I will have the Steelers, wet conditions, some wind, like I'll have them, but it's not a slam dunk play. Kind of like the Ravens on the other side at 3,300, the most expensive. And like I said earlier, like on offense, it's easy to punt things off. The coaches can just call run and run. On defense, I think the guys still show up. 3,300, like in these conditions, I'm going to make sure to get some exposure to the Ravens. And then, you don't want to write off Texans, Colts. I mean, you have 2 quarterbacks willing to take chances, a higher total. There's going to be more opportunity. I'm just going to kind of spread it out. The field is definitely going heavy Steelers. I kind of just want, a little bit of everything here. It just seems like a toss-up position today. And
I like the defenses against the quarterbacks in a couple spots. Definitely the Texans going up against Gardner Minshew, even though I like Gardner and he's one of my favorite quarterbacks today. I'm saying it's just because of that game environment, but it can happen still where you get both. Gardner Minshew could run 2 in. throw a touchdown to Pittman, and then also throw 2 picks. Like that is definitely possible in a game like this back and forth. And I think the field is extremely sharp these days. The reason they're on the Steelers is because they know Huntley will throw Aguilar the ball, and that sounds like pick city. So the Pittsburgh defense at 3,100 just has to be the play when they're just incentive feeding Aguilar all game. There's bound to be mistakes there. So I think
here's what's going to happen. All right, I see it now. All right, Aguilar 60-yard bomb. All right, they're at their own 25, 60-yard bomb. He gets down to where would that take him to the 20? Tackled, fumble. So he gets over the 58. Steelers take the ball down, defensive touchdown. That's what's going to happen.
Double down on both. Yeah, we need a site to come out where we can bet exactas for what we think is going to happen. I want to bet it exactly. It's like 59 yards, the fumble, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. You get a single game parlay on all of that. But I don't have much else to add. I definitely think, like I said, I talked about it a bunch, but the defense against is going to be a thing for me for sure. Like I said, Baltimore D against a guy like Warren makes perfect sense to me. You go with Houston against Gardner Minshew. You go with Indy versus Stroud. If you have Indy winning that game, I definitely don't hate that. You go with the Steelers against Huntley, who we talked about, and then Baltimore just at home. We are mixing and matching and playing them all, so it is what it is. But it's like they're 2,900 to 3,300, and you can play them against whoever you want. It's just a 2-game slate, so I don't really think that's a big deal. And then I mentioned this point earlier, and Go Collect brings it up again. I think it's both sides. Like if both sides get away with just running the ball in this weather and down the stretch, that's what's interesting about those being the 2 most popular defenses is there's not really many opportunities. Everyone loves, me included, Collins, Pittman. Get serious for a minute here. All the actual guys in that game that you can throw to, the guys like Hutchinson and Mechie, and then on the other side, the Downs and Pierce plays and check downs to Taylor and Singletary. These are where you get opportunities for a defense. So I think that's definitely a takeaway for me. Just good talking through it and finding these things out is thinking through the slate more. The other ones make sense for weather and scoring, but at the same time, it makes sense. We want those opportunities. So even in a higher scoring game, the defenses could be a big part of that. I think at the, just the price difference of $100 from the Steelers down to the Texans can definitely work regardless of anything else that's in your lineup. I really don't even care. You could have 5 guys from Indy and the Houston D could still be the one that's needed on this slate. Like it really does not matter to me in that spot today. Yeah. So not something that I'll be setting up. Any final thoughts for this slate hoop? We got to think all of it out of the way here, but we'll be doing these 2-game shows the next 2 weeks as well for these wild card weekend and division weekend as well.
Yeah. Next week's game should be quite a bit more exciting. And, I think we kind of talked through this, hit on some good points, some roster construction stuff, but man, nothing beats playoff NFL football. And that's what we get for, I don't know, but the next 4 weeks, next month. So it's exciting time. We're going to get through week 18. We're going to get some SHIPIT Nation logos to the top of the leaderboard. And looking forward to, this slate. I mean, we kind of talked through it. I think there's some different ways to go about it. Our content is basically complete. Everything's up, ready to go for the most part. A couple changes along the way. Then we'll be in Discord. We got PGA. We got an hour left before PGA. We have Showdown content for that. So a lot of exciting stuff going on over at SHIPIT Nation.
Yeah, you just mentioned, so all this stuff is up already. I think this is up. The GPP, the cash, your player pool, my enhanced slate plans for both DraftKings and FanDuel, stack rankings, DVP rankings are always updated. I know there's some stuff up for the tiers slate already for tomorrow. We'll flip all of this over when we get to the first game lock. Projections are updated as of this morning. Going to have a couple more updates come to that. We're just fine tuning some stuff there, waiting to get a little bit more news as we get closer to lock. We'll definitely have you covered there. And then like Hoop said, we did launch it. So if you want to get in, you can use PGA 10 on the monthly. If you still want to get all access, that'll get you, I believe, right through to almost the Super Bowl right now. So you can set it up that way. If you want to get in, that's going to take it down to $62. But we did, if you want to get in for golf only and you want to get in the PGA streets, great start to the week. I know it's only 2 days into a no cut, so we can't really run anything yet, but so far so good. You can get in on the weekly, no Discord access, but the code PGA10 will get you guys set up for around $30 for your first month and then locks in at $34. When the price goes to $39, you'll still be locked in at the $34. The season pass is just right now, just like we did our original launch. If you use PGA 10, you can get it for $179. That drops it to about $5 per event for the entire season, full access. And by the way, you might want to get in now because it includes anything we add along the way. there's potentially some big things coming to the PGA as well as other things across the site. But when this goes to $239 and is 10% off, you'll still have it locked in at $179. So definitely want to get in now if you're trying to get in. Were you going to say one more thing there, Hoop?
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is like these prices are like in some cases more than the monthly is about half of what the industry standard is. Like our competitors, we're about half the price there. Then, I mean, the real value is this season package because a lot of these other sites are $500-$600 for PGA season. Just PGA, like you can get our entire annual for $500-$600, somewhere in that range. This is a freaking steal, the season stuff. I mean, $500-$600 other sites are charging. We're charging $199. You can get it for $179 right now if you're into PGA DFS.
Or if you're into all of it, you said it. I love the first way you said it too. There's at least 2 sites charging $500 or more for their PGA only package, and we're charging $539 with the code PGA10. You can take this down to $539 and get the whole next year of NFL, which gets you right through till playoff time, and then maybe grab a month or something to renew it at the time because you'll be locked in. NBA, PGA, MMA, NHL, MLB, and again, anything else that we add. I'm going to keep saying that over this next month or so because anything we add will be included within your membership. So if you've been on the fence, now's the time to get in. Go online, go to SHIPITNation.com, use the code PGA10. That's all we got for this one, guys. For Hoop, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it!